Maayong hapon kanatong tanan mga binati o pinalangga kung kaigsuunang Cebuanon. Maayong hapon usab sa atong mga kaigsuunang Pilipino nga nagpaminaw kanato karon sa Kabisayan ug Mindanao lakip na sa Luzon. Duna usab kitay mga kaigsuunang Pilipino nga anaa sa ubang mga nasod nga nasayod ako maminaw gayud usab kay buot silang hibalo ug unsay mga updates nato dinhi sa probinsya sa Cebu. And so because of that, I hope you don't mind, may I speak again in English so that I will be understood by those who cannot speak Cebuano or Bisaya. Allow me to start with an update on the COVID situation in the Philippines according to the COVID bulletin that DOH issues every day, and an update of the COVID situation here in the province of Cebu. And these data are based upon daily reports from all of our municipal health officers, city health officers, and of course in coordination with our Department of Health. Nationwide, according to the June 6th bulletin issued by DOH, there are a total of 1,269,478 if we were to include counting from the very first COVID case, which was still last year. But this is the only disease where we keep a running total of the number of cases that have been tested and shown as positive here in the Philippines. Any other disease, we do a reboot, we restart every year. But no, not for COVID. So, with 1.2 million cases, how many died? 21,898 since last year. That corresponds to 1.72% of the total 1.2 million. How many recovered? 93.6%, or a total of 1,188,243, while still considered as active cases are 59,337, or 4.7%. How does this 4.7% or 59,337 cases distribute itself? According to DOH, 95.9% are mild or asymptomatic. Therefore, mild and asymptomatic cases do not need hospital care. 95.9%. In other words, 55,451 are mild, or 93.5%, while 1,424 are asymptomatic, or 2.4%. The rest are distributed amongst the moderate, severe, and critical in the entire country. This is the entire country, okay? So, moderate cases are 682, severe 1,009, critical are 771, for a total of 2,462 moderate, severe, and critical. In the National Capital Region, 51% of the ICU beds are occupied. 40% of the isolation beds are occupied, while 36% of ward beds are occupied. In the entire country, you have the corresponding data. 58% utilized for ICU, 48% for isolation, 49% for ward beds, and you see, if 58%, this now corresponds to, for the entire country, NCR and the entire Philippines, you need ICU for critical, right? Now, 51% utilized of the 700 beds in NCR. 58% utilized of the 1.9 thousand beds, 1,900,000 beds for the entire country, for the rest of the country. That's 1,083 for critical, for ICU, that need ICU treatment, and that is for critical cases. And yet, according to DOH figures, critical cases are only 771. So why the difference of over 300? For the rest of isolation beds and ward beds, the total beds utilized are over 7,000, over 9,000. Because it's 6,256 for isolation, 2,940 for ward beds. Let's just go to ward beds. These are hospital beds. 2,940. But if you were to put in, if you added the severe and moderate, that only gives you 1,691. But the ward beds are now utilized up to 2,940. Even if you were to bring in the critical, these are their figures. But it bears critical analysis. According to DOH, you have 771 critical, 1,009 severe, 682 moderate, or a total of 2,462. And yet, in accordance with their own report, in so far as ICU utilization is concerned, and in so far as ward bed utilization is concerned, and I presume we mean those beds intended for COVID, there's certainly far greater numbers. In ICU right now, there are 1,083 beds occupied. The critical cases are 771. The ward beds, there are 2,940 occupied. Total critical, severe, and moderate are 2,462. The numbers do not add up. But these are their numbers. I hope that the medical experts will take the time to analyze their own numbers, because that's what we need to do at this time. Let us study the figures carefully, analyze, do some critical analysis before we come up with policies. Well, I hope that these numbers are verified or validated. But see, the figures don't add up. Now let's go to the status of COVID-19 in the province of Cebu. In the province of Cebu, from April 20 to December 31st, 2020, there were 6,982 cases. From January 1st, 2021 to June 5th, 2021, there were 8,871 cases, or a total of over 15,000 total for 2 years. Of these, those that have died, and we are now segregating. We do this in the province of Cebu because I know that some experts immediately tried to lump other deaths caused by other sicknesses or perhaps even accidents, and because they were swabbed post-mortem, even after they arrived in the hospital dead, upon arrival, they were still swabbed, and for some inexplicable reason, they got a positive result. They were immediately tallied under COVID death. From what I know, when you say that he died of COVID-19, it is because the disease increasingly progressed from mild to moderate to severe, critical, until finally his lungs gave out or the cytokine storm set in. That is what you call dying of COVID-19, but not when you meet a motorcycle accident, you hit your head, and the findings are very clear, blunt head trauma, but then you are listed as a COVID-19 death. How did we segregate? We went back to the death certificates because you cannot lie in the death certificate. You could probably put in, it's an incidental COVID case, but you cannot put the primary cause of death as COVID. So we went back to the death certificates and found out that of the 738 declared as COVID deaths, 187 in the death certificates were actually listed as COVID death. 540 of these were COVID incidental, that they died of other causes, that the primary cause of death was either hypertension, diabetes, severe pneumonia, sepsis, and other causes. As of now, we have 11 deaths that still have no diagnosis. Okay, what does 187 true COVID deaths represent of the total number of COVID cases? That's equivalent to 1.2%. 1.2% fatality rate of COVID-19. How many have recovered? Over 14,748 or 93%. Right now, we have active cases numbering 367. 367 or 2.3%, of which 89 are hospitalized or 24.3. In isolation are 278 or 75.7. Those that are in isolation are broken down between mild symptomatics and asymptomatics. Of the 278, 125 are mild symptomatics, while 153 are asymptomatics, or 55%. So we have a much higher percentage of asymptomatics, which is 55%, than the national tally. I do know that there were others that questioned, why do we have a higher rate of asymptomatic? Well, the DOH presentation states that of the 95.9 mild and asymptomatic, 93.5% are mild, while 2.4% are asymptomatic. Well, if you do question our figures, each and every number corresponds to a name, and each and every name corresponds to a person. We have verified and validated our figures. I do hope that others also have done so, because then we can challenge each other's figures. The truth of the matter is, in the province of Cebu, 55% of our active cases are asymptomatic, while 45% have mild symptoms. What are the leading causes of death? I'll give you a rundown, a quick rundown. COVID caused 187 deaths. But there are also still other diseases, and they are still very much around. And some of these diseases have been exacerbated by our very strict lockdowns, forgetting basic hygiene, basic immuno-boosting ways that we could help our own body, and just focusing on keeping people inside their homes, causing so much depression and so much stress. What are the other diseases that are still very much around? Community-acquired pneumonia, heart problems, kidney disease, stroke or aneurysm, septic shock, cancer, multiple organ failure, sepsis, brain trauma, and this is the motor vehicle accident, bacterial meningitis, blood disease, even asphyxia due to strangulation. 2 of these cause of death were listed under COVID, because these are the 738 deaths. And listed amongst 738 COVID deaths, which of course included COVID, but only 187 of that, we also listed as COVID death hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy. Why are you surprisingly? Yapa. Bacterial meningitis. 3 who died of bacterial meningitis were listed as COVID death. This is worse. The brain trauma due to motor vehicle accident. 6 deaths were listed as COVID deaths. But in fact, there was, as I said, the trauma to the head due to motor vehicle accident. 6 of them died. Heart problems, 93 that had heart attacks and died were listed as COVID deaths. Kidney diseases, 59 of them. CVD, cardiovascular, stroke and aneurysm, 52. Septic shock, 49. We have the names. We verified. So you may question us. We are open to your questions and challenges, but we know of our figures and we know what we speak of. That of the 738 deaths, 187 were actually COVID. All the rest, and we have the corresponding figures, all the rest were other diseases that caused the death or other causes like a motor vehicle accident. From April 30, 2020 to June 5, 2021. So that's 3 quarters of 2020 and 2 quarters of 2021. These are the number of monthly positive cases. As you can see, it can go up, then it goes down. It goes up and it goes down. The important thing here is when we do experience an increase, are lockdowns the answer? No. Perhaps we may just be immediately looking for a solution without asking the right question. And the right question should be, when the cases start to rise, do we have enough hospital beds? Do we have enough measures to contain the rise? Do we have enough critical care utilization that does not reach alarming levels where we are practically overwhelmed? You see, these are all the factors that play into managing COVID-19. First and foremost, it starts with enough hospital beds and with enough hospital and health personnel, doctors and nurses. Second of all, the right contact tracing systems. Third of all, the proper containment that should be done. These are all factors that interplay into COVID management. And I must make mention here, it also includes the proper referral system. Meaning that from our isolation centers, to our rural health units, to our district hospitals, to our provincial hospitals, and on to our regional hospital here as well as the private hospitals. There has to be a proper referral so that it is already instilled into the minds and hearts of our barangay health emergency responders that mild symptoms do not mean rushing this person to the hospital. That there are other remedies that may be instituted and put into place. That asymptomatic and mildly symptomatic persons should not, of course, be rushed to the ICU. So that is a proper referral system. That is working right here in the province of Cebu and in our tri-cities, Cebu City, Mandaue City, and Lapu-Lapu City. Why? Because it's been a year since COVID-19 first visited our shores. And that was way back last year. Surely, we would already have gathered data, analyzed our data, learned from past fumbles, and looking on, moving forward, we should already have instituted proper measures that would manage the disease. Let me be very clear about this. To dream of a zero COVID scenario is a pipe dream. We have not even achieved a zero disease, zero cases for dengue, for tuberculosis, for measles, where we have vaccination every year. So it is not about completely eradicating COVID-19. It's about managing the disease. And managing that disease should not mean locking down an entire economy. That should not mean the loss of businesses, the loss of people's jobs and livelihoods, and the misery of thousands upon thousands who are already burdened with this economic devastation. So as of May 31st, for the entire month, we got 836 positive cases in 2021. But did we lock down? No. And we analyzed this 831. If the records bear us out, more than 93% of these are mild or asymptomatic. That is why I have always insisted on analyzing data, especially if you keep on adding up all positives and you present the cumulative total, you give the misimpression that in fact, if there are 1.2 million cases in the Philippines right now, 1.2 million cases need treatment. When in fact, as the DOH data itself has shown, 1.1 million, 1.150 million, 1.150,000 have already recovered. In the province of Cebu, this is the graph. Insofar as weekly COVID-19 cases are concerned. Now, if you look at the lowest point, which of course started in April of 26, we had 3 cases. April 26, from the April 26 to April 31st, there were 3 cases last year. We went down lowest in the December 20 to December 26 last year week to just 21 cases. Then the cases started to rise, which reached 735 from March 7 to March 13. Thereafter, the cases again started to decrease. That is the entire weekly COVID-19 cases, active cases from April 30, 2020 to June 5, 2021. A rise and a fall, a rise and a fall. And these are the weekly COVID-19 active cases from January 1 to June 5, 2021. Now, here is a very interesting point. If you notice, from January 1st, 2021 until the March 21st to March 30 week, well, until March 14 to March 20, we peaked at 1,290 active cases. Thereafter, I issued Executive Order number 17, and slowly the cases started to drop. Went down to 1,057, then to 991, to 851, and now we're at 367. Executive Order number 17, supported by a provincial board ordinance, and therefore becomes the law of the land. It is not just Executive Order number 17. It is a provincial board ordinance that mandates the protocols for arriving ROFs and OFWs, whereupon we immediately test upon arrival. And then, while awaiting results, they check into a hotel. In 24 to 48 hours, the results are out, and if you get a negative test result, you continue your quarantine at home. And on the 7th day, you are tested again. These tests are done for free. Those are the protocols that are being followed and that were followed since March 31st. And it bears closer analysis that from March 31st, the cases started to decrease. I had always stated that testing just on the 7th day, while they are in quarantine in these hotels, was more dangerous. And in fact, over the weekend, I got this confirmation from one whom I talked to. She had been working with Cathay Pacific for the past 28 years. She had just come home from Hong Kong. And at the time, it was testing on the 5th day. They had to stay. But many times she had to call the front desk because those other people, OFWs and ROFs, coming from other countries, were congregating in the hallways and talking amongst themselves and interacting with the hotel staff. That is what I said. If you only test on the 7th day, you do not catch those that may possibly already be infected and may now start to infect others, because we cannot be assured that they just stay inside the rooms, that they do not in fact go out of their rooms, interact with other ROFs or OFWs, or even interact with hotel staff, with the security personnel, and all others. And perhaps, was that the reason why our cases started to increase when they started only testing on the 5th day? And now, when we tested upon arrival on March 31st, the cases started to drop. So, our weekly COVID-19 active cases, I already showed you this. What is the COVID-19 hospital bed occupancy as of June 5th? Of the 400 beds in the province intended for COVID, 22 are COVID, 38 are ILI, 16 are SARI, or total of 76. And they have occupied 19% of the beds. We still have 81% hospital beds available. In LGU isolation, out of a total 2,464 intended beds for COVID, only 2% is occupied, or 57 persons. 98% are still available. What are the top ranking provinces and cities? Active cases per 100%, for 100,000 population. These are DOH figures, by the way. They have not yet updated or put in the Eastern Visayas and other areas of Luzon. So this is the same number of provinces and cities that were listed in the previous presentation that I did. Still number one is the city of Makati with 132 cases per 100,000 population. You see, I have long emphasized to have 100 cases in a small town of a population of 500 would not be in the same boat as 100 cases in a population of 1 million. Because why? Well, first and foremost, this small municipality would not have enough hospital beds. Might not have enough hospital beds to care. However, in a big metropolis with enough ICU and hospital beds available, you see, it's all about the COVID management. So the city of Makati has 132 out of 100,000 population. Next is Cagayan with 131. Next is Pasig, then Baguio City, then Davao City, the city of Parañaque, Pasay City, Isabela, General Santos, Taguig. These are the top 10 ranking cities and provinces of the total number of active cases per 100,000. We prorated it. Number 11 is Laguna. Number 12 is Quezon City. Number 13 is Negros Oriental. 14 is Valenzuela. And then City of Manila, Cavite, Batangas, Caloocan, Pampanga, Bulacan. Next is Leyte, Rizal, Bohol, Cagayan de Oro City, Cebu City, Pangasinan, Lapu-Lapu City, Mandaue City, and Cebu Island. What is Cebu Island? We consolidate this. The three cities of Mandaue, Lapu-Lapu, and Cebu City, and the province. We're at number 29. I just want this made very, very clear because it seems that the DOH continues to lump provinces together into regions. And they continue to report the increase in number of positive cases in Region 7 or Central Visayas. I repeat, Central Visayas is not one big lump of an island. Central Visayas is composed of 4 island provinces. The island of Bohol, the island of Cebu, part of the island of Negros, and the island of Siquijor. And where does Cebu Island stand in the overall ranking of top cities and provinces in terms of COVID cases per 100,000 population? Cebu Island stands at number 29. What about Cebu Province? Cebu Province stands at number 30. Now we must be doing something right. Because though we have opened up tourism, we have opened up the economy, we continue to be on MGCQ status, now running at over 10 months. In fact, it's time to think about Cebu, not just to be on MGCQ, but to consider Cebu for low-risk status. If you look around, you see businesses starting to pick up. In the province of Cebu, there are even new businesses that have been put up. The economy is slowly dragging itself out from the comatose status that it was in during those lockdowns. And yet, in spite of economic and tourism activity going on in Cebu, the entire island is number 29 in the top ranking cities and provinces with COVID-19 active cases when reckoned from a per 100,000 distribution. And Cebu province is number 30. I just had to repeat that just in case some misimpressions will spring out of the DOH's inexplicable shift into reporting COVID-19 active cases now in terms of regions. I know that there are certain experts in the DOH that have been pushing for a whole of nation approach. Perhaps this has sprung from the "We heal as one" slogan. But you see, we cannot heal as one because we have different circumstances, different protocols in fact, and different leaderships. We are not all uniformly and similarly situated. There are others that have more cases on a 100,000 scale or distribution, and others with lower cases. Even though, like for example, the province of Cebu, we have one of the highest populations in the entire country. And if we speak of Cebu Island, we are the single biggest block in terms of population and in terms of voters. Cebu Island, comprising the province of Cebu, Mandaue, Cebu City, and Lapu-Lapu City, comprise the single biggest voting block of over 5 million votes. And yet, with such a high population, we rank only as an island number 29 in the number of active cases, and as a province, we rank number 30. I hope that this is made very clear, because what I am saying now is born out of clear, critical analysis of data which we got from the Department of Health mismo. Okay. Questions?
Gov, may apat ko regarding sa manifest ng ipirmahan sa mga kongresista sa Cebu supporting your policies sa ROF OFW.
Yes, first of all, I would like to thank Congressman Edgardo Gullias of the 1st District, Congressman Wilfredo Caminero of the 2nd District, Congressman Pablo Jan Garcia, or Deputy Speaker Pablo Jan Garcia of the 3rd District, Congresswoman Janice Salimbangon of the 4th District, Congressman Duke Frasco of the 5th District, Congressman Lollipop Oano Dizon of the 6th District, Congressman Peter John Calderon of the 7th District, and Congressman Sunny Lagon of the Ako Bisaya party list for having come up with a manifesto supporting the protocols laid down by Executive Order number 17 and the Provincial Board Ordinance, recognizing the fact that those that would be affected by the 14-day, 7th-day, 14-day quarantine, 7th-day swabbing, 10-day isolation rule of the IETF would be a heavy emotional and financial burden on the constituents of their districts of returning Filipinos as well as overseas Filipino workers. And so, being the elected representatives of their constituents, they have expressed in this manifesto the compassion for their own constituents and have abided by their sacred duty to speak out and stand for the welfare of their own constituents. So daghan gyud kaayong salamat sa atong mga kongresista who have taken it upon themselves to come up with this manifesto.
Well, the Congressman's manifesto went even further.
Congressman who?
The Congressman's manifesto went further into saying it should be the LGU who will be handling the COVID-19 response.
Well, they are the congressmen, they craft the law, isn't that? Starts as a bill that they file in Congress. And so they are the legislators. And so more than ever, they recognize what the law is. They recognize that Republic Act 7160 has a specific section, Section 105, which states that in times of national health emergencies, that Secretary of Health, upon direction of the President and upon consultation with the local government unit, may take over health protocols of that LGU. But it may not extend beyond 6 months. It's been over 6 months. In fact, it's more than a year now. He may continue to define health protocols only with the concurrence of the local government unit. And these congressmen understand that it is really the LGUs that know the situation on the ground, not some hailed experts that only read figures, read articles in the internet, but do not have actual ground experience. So it's really ironical that they should be dictating policies that have so much impact on people's lives when these people were never chosen, were never elected by the people. And so they are not accountable to the people. We are. In fact, we also always have to account for what we have done for the people that elected us. Every 3 years, an election comes up. You have to make this report and say, these are my promises, this is what we have done. So the congressmen who are elected representatives themselves recognize that.
Prof, sa pagbalik na sa flight sa Cebu International Airport, magpabilin ang ato ang palisiya with regards sa ROF o mga OFW.
This morning, I had a meeting with the same core group. Representatives, well, our DOH, the DOT, the OWA, the BOQ, the MCIAA, and the GMCAC, the Hotel and Restaurant Association, and we discussed the resumption of flights. Right now, it's still pegged at 300. We got also an inventory of the number of rooms, which shall now be, upon proper inspection both between the DOT and the DOH, within the week might expand to over 5,000 rooms. What does that mean? That even if non-Cebuanos were to be subjected to a 10-day quarantine period here, we have capacity of 5,000. We will have capacity of rooms available for 5,000 for as long as the Cebuanos upon presentation of a negative RT-PCR will be allowed to go home to their own LGUs. Because you see, it's about 20%. 20% of the arriving ROFs and OFWs are Cebuanos. They were all in agreement that the provincial board ordinance, not even the executive order, but the provincial board ordinance is the recognized local law of the land, unless it is otherwise declared ultra vires by a proper court. So, they all agreed that they would have to follow the provincial board ordinance because they do not want to break the law or violate the law. That is for Cebuanos. For non-Cebuanos, we await. If they insist that they be kept here, well, we shall be increasing the hotel rooms so that the bed capacity increases to allow them to be kept here if the LGU will not accept them. We just hope that the request of our hotels be granted because there's a huge disparity between what is being paid by OWA to our hotels here. It's 1,400. On the other hand, in Manila, for a category or 3-star hotel, it's 3,000. Those with higher star, 4-star and 5-star, they get, it's 2,005, and then it goes up to 2,008 to 3,000. So there's a huge disparity. According to OWA, it was because of COA limitations that in Region 7, or in the city of Cebu, what is allowed only is 1,004. So I had to confirm with our regional director for COA here whether or not there is in fact such a limitation in the payment of the hotels. You know that 1,004 is not only for the accommodation, that includes 3 meals a day. So it's practically a losing proposition for our hotels. And I wouldn't blame them if there aren't so many who are excited about joining as a multi-use facility. I broached the idea, and this is very important. I said, okay, with the arrivals, we take off 20% of that because this was also brought out. They said, for as long as we do not include into the equation the Cebuanos that arrive, because they must only stay for 2 days at most, then they can be sent home. That increases our bed capacity or our room capacity. I pointed out, perhaps because I had not really carefully read the announcement, I pointed out that, well, according to the DOH recommendation, they will shorten the quarantine stay in the hotel to 7 days for vaccinated OFWs and ROFs. But everyone reacted and said, but Gov, that is only for those that were vaccinated in the Philippines. That was what was pointed out. I hope you can verify that, but everyone was very sure about it because I guess that is the guideline that they were given. That is only now for ROFs and OFWs that were vaccinated in the Philippines. Which means to say that the OFW has to come home, subject himself to a 14-day quarantine in order to be vaccinated. First dose, come back again for the second dose, which cannot be given immediately.
Yes.
And which also says that, so the vaccine that you get in the United States will not be effective here in the Philippines.
Not be honored.
And then I went further on to say, okay, let's still presume that they will limit the 7-day quarantine period. They will limit it to 7 days quarantine for the Philippine vaccinated ROFs and OFWs. I hope I'm wrong. This was what was.
Actually, that's true though.
Is that true?
Yes.
It's in the news. So, I said, at any rate, let us still presume that the arriving OFWs are Philippine vaccinated OFWs. So they will now be allowed only 7 days. They will now allow the 7-day quarantine. But their testing will only happen on the 7th day. So are they saying now that after they were tested, regardless of whether or not the results have come out attesting that they were negative or positive, they may go home? How is that better than one who is tested upon arrival and upon 24 to 48 hours, he has to wait for the result, then armed with a negative result, he can go home. As compared to one who, according to their protocols, can only be tested on the 7th day, and on that 7th day, regardless of the result, he may go home. Things are getting weirder and weirder. In fact, I cannot believe that these kinds of policies were in fact the product of careful analysis, actual on-ground experience, and logic and common sense.
There's a limit of the number of arrivals.
Right now, it's still 300 because they are also looking at the insistence of IATF that non-Cebuanos should be billeted for 10 days. And with a capacity right now of about 3,000, that should be good for 10 days. However, as the room capacity is going to be increased, perhaps within the week or early next week, to over 5,000, that now increases our capacity to accept ROFs and OFWs that will have to stay for a longer period should they insist. I realize, though we had said that indeed the non-Cebuanos, after having tested negative, should go home to their own provinces. Anyway, they are carrying a negative test result and subject themselves to the protocols of that province. There were provinces that did not accept. That was why that lady from Nueva Ecija died in Lapu-Lapu. Apparently, she was not accepted in the province until she would have completed a 10-day stay. Well, if that is insisted upon, it's more business for our hotels. Although I hope that they will increase that, because why this disparity? The regional director of COA here has already stated she is not aware of such a cap, but she is double-checking now whether there is a cap, that there is a higher cap for NCR and over 1,000 pesos lower here. I mean 1,400 compared to 2,500 or 2,800, even 3,000 pesos. Why this huge disparity when our hotels have the same facilities and our hotels are located in the same highly urbanized areas such as Metro, like NCR?
Yung magulang klaro, like ang ato ang home isolation sa mga Cebuano, mga tested negative, 7 days yapon ko, and then after that, i-swab sila.
Yes, they will again. In fact, I read somewhere that I just said that orally. No, I did not say that orally. There's really a memorandum to that effect. That's a follow-up to Executive Order 17. They are tested upon arrival. If negative, they go home to their LGU. They are on home quarantine. On the 7th day after arrival, they are reswabbed for free. So that is really going beyond. We are not defying, we are innovating, to use the words of Yusek Densing, but I heard he did not stand up to that anymore. But he said that. That came from him. We are innovating in order to custom fit the guideline, which is a guideline to our peculiar situation here. Other provinces may not mind as much. Why? They're not international airports. Pila man ka international airports actually have flights that are coming in. Just NAIA, MCAA. Davao is not, no?
Right.
Clark. So, our situation here with our steadily dropping number of cases would seem to prove that what we are doing is effective. Not only on the science of it, a very favorite word right now, not only on the science of it, but also on the mathematics of it. Because our policies are based also on science and on mathematics, because we have figures that we analyze. But more than that, beyond the science and the mathematics of it, let us remember, these figures are not just numbers. These are people. These are Filipinos who are sacrificing abroad to bring in the dollars to help their families and to help our own economy. Many have called them unsung heroes. So let us look at the humanitarian side of it. They are coming home not to gallivant around and not to have some grand vacation. For 95% of them, they are coming home because of emergencies. Whether it be a family member gravely ill, or a family member that has passed away, or some accident that has befallen some member of the family, or some other emergency. And they have very short breaks that they ask from their companies where they work. If we subject them to a 10-day quarantine inside the hotel, that's taking away so much time away from family. And if they're rushing home, hoping that they may catch one gravely ill family member still alive, in those 10 days, that family member may already have passed away, and he would not, our ROF or OFW would not have been able to say goodbye. Put yourself in their place, because you are Filipino, I am a Filipino, they are Filipinos as well. Let us treat them as humanely as we would treat our own family.
Now let me clarify. Ang non-Cebuano residents, after 3 days, they have the option to stay here in Cebu. Dili na kailangan mo mauli gud sila sa ilang province.
The situation is actually, while we were saying it should be a shared responsibility, so that after 2 days, if they in fact
Negative.
have a negative test result, and that's good for the next 72 hours, per DOH protocol, I'm just, quoting the DOH. In fact, home quarantine is also allowed. That's DOH protocol. Unless they have already, revoked that protocol, it's still there. Maybe they forgot. So, if they get that negative test result, per DOH statement, that's good for the next 72 hours. We are saying that they should go home. They should go back. If they are coming here to Cebu and they belong to Metro Manila, they go back to Metro Manila. Over there, they should stay. If the protocol in, say, Quezon City is, you stay in this specified quarantine hotel, then they should do that. And they be swabbed on the 7th day. Again, but we will already be giving them that negative RT-PCR test result to assure them that this person, when tested within 72 hours, was negative. Of course, DOH said, but there are so many false negatives. Is that the same as there are so many false positives? So when is it convenient to say false negative, and when is it convenient to say false positive? If we do not believe the results of the RT-PCR on the first day, saying that there are many cases of false negatives, then why do we need to test them on the 7th day? That's the same RT-PCR test that they will have to take. So, we would encourage they go home, they stay there in their own provinces, following the protocols of that province or city, be tested again on the 7th day, stay until the 10th day, and then complete the rest of the 14-day quarantine in their own homes. But there are provinces that would not accept. And so they may stay here for the next 10 days. That's what happened to that lady who died from Nueva Ecija. She tested twice negative, by the way. Negative upon arrival. On the 7th day, she was swabbed again. And she was still negative.
Okay, more questions? No more? You have another issue? Wala na?
With the issuance of the joint manifesto from the 8 congressmen, are we hoping, Gov, na the IATF would now listen to us?
I know the DOH did not listen to us because they issued that statement. But they will still insist. They will still insist on the 7th day swab and confinement in the hotel for 10 days. But they would allow it to be reduced to 7 days for those OFWs and ROFs that have been vaccinated in the Philippines. Very kamo na sulti ana. It's very so what's the pangutana? I got so lost in the brilliance of the policy.
Kung ang joint manifesto, would it be
Would change their
a way
minds.
for them
Ah.
to listen to us here?
I am hoping that, our congressmen represent their specific districts, no? That's very, very, it's really bringing it down to the people. And they have spoken out. I hope that this joint manifesto by our 8 congressmen would have a bearing in the decision of the IATF, because if they would meet it, they would just treat it like, cast it aside, then why else do we have to have elected officials for? Di na lang ta magpapili sa mga tao. Ipang-appoint na lang ni sila. Sila na lang magbuot sa panginabuhi sa katawhan, sa kinabuhi sa katawhan. We have elected officials because our elected officials have to answer to the people. We are accountable to the people. And so, we are duty-bound to protect the welfare of the people that put us into office.
Okay.
And these congressmen are the crafters of laws. They legislate. It is from them that a law emanates or starts. And they know what the law is.
Lee, wala kayo follow-up question? Wala na? Okay na? Yes, okay. Okay, go. Thank you very much. In closing?
In closing, I would like to thank you for having stayed with us and listened to what we have presented. I hope that by the data we have presented, you can get a clearer picture of how we must proceed, of how we will be able to rise up to the challenge of managing COVID-19. And furthermore, I hope that above all else, let us not forget our humanity. Let us not forget that we are human beings, not just numbers or figures, but people with families that can feel for us, that can miss us, that can suffer along with us. For and behalf of all Cebuanos, allow me first to express our deep appreciation and gratitude to our congressmen from the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th districts, as well as the Ako Bisaya party list, for having come up with a manifesto upholding our humanity and our understanding for our fellow men. So daghan kay salamat o maayong hapon kanatong tanan.